Hey, what's up? Welcome to the Lifeonaire Show. I'm your host, Jason Wodrow. I'm joined by my co-host, Polish Peter. On the Lifeonaire Show, we help people make more, work less, and live better by creating lives and businesses they absolutely love. What's up, man?
Hey, I'm glad to be here, man, to record this particular episode with you guys.
Right. Well, listen, Peter's being funny here. So what we're going to do, we decided, let me give you a backstory. The Lifeonaire Show, as you know it today, as awesome as it is, hopefully you think it's cool, wasn't always in the current format. And what I mean by that is way back 2015, 2016, that, 5-6 years ago, Steve Cook, the founder of Lifeonaire, did a few episodes with the Lifeonaire Show. It wasn't called Lifeonaire Show. I don't know what it was called, actually, the Lifeonaire Podcast. But there's a lot of great content that we recently discovered that I'm like, wow, this is really good stuff. We need to get this out to the people. And I think there's a lot of value to these episodes. And so periodically, we will be releasing legacy episodes from the original Lifeonaire Show with Steve.
Yeah, I think it's a really good idea, actually, because of the fact that there is a lot of gold in those, and let's just share with the community and see what we can get out of this.
And I mean, it's, Peter, Steve's awesome. I mean, yeah, he founded Lifeonaire. Yeah, he's like the man. Yeah, he's incredible. I mean, I don't know if he's better than us.
Put us two together.
There's a chance. There's a fighting chance.
Yeah.
Right? So let's go right into the episode right now. This episode in particular is with Gabe Strom. So if you guys, you may remember Gabe. He's been on the newer version of Lifeonaire Show as well. Gabe's a good friend. He's a rock star, incredible entrepreneur. And so this is I feel like we're going like back to the future right now, Peter, because like we interviewed him, but it was later on than the original one. And so now we're going to the original one. And so this is an episode with Steve where he talks about a potential fifth stage of prosperity. We talk about the 4 stages of financial prosperity. They talk about a potential fifth stage. They talked about how to discover their purpose, how to discover what it is you're really after in your business through entrepreneurship. How to lean on inspiration rather than desperation. There's a lot of awesome nuggets in this episode. I can't wait for people to hear it.
Yeah. So with what you just said about going back to the future, everyone grab your hoverboard and let's go on this little journey.
Here we go. Legacy episode, Steve Cook and Gabe Strom.
Hello, this is Steve Cook with Lifeonaire, coming to you today with another real life story of a changed life. As many of you know, if you've been listening in on these interviews, you're well aware of the fact that the Lifeonaire message is really helping people to change lives. One of the things that I was just even contemplating yesterday was that it's really not the Lifeonaire message. We're just giving people tools to use to begin to make serious changes, to find direction, to begin to take steps in moving in that direction. But one thing that I want to make very clear is that it's not the Lifeonaire message that's changing people's lives. I don't want people focused on Lifeonaire, but it's the tools that we give. And I don't want Lifeonaire to become the idol in people's lives. Instead, I just want it to be recognized as something that's assisting people to take steps and to move down a path. And with that, I'm very excited today to be introducing my guest. He is somebody who came to a Lifeonaire event a couple of years ago. He did not join one of our coaching groups at that time, but he has seen a significant change in his life that he can trace back to some of the decisions that he made at that Lifeonaire event. And I'm really excited about having him with us today to share that story with all of you. My guest today is Gabe Strom. Gabe, are you with us?
I am, Steve. Thanks for having me on.
Well, Gabe, I am delighted to be interviewing you here today because I know, and I've been watching from a little bit afar. I know when you send me emails, you ask me things like, I don't know if you remember me, but I was at this event, and I always remember you, and I've been watching you and seeing what's been going on, and it excites me to see how much you have started doing and how many changes that you have made. Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe, where you were at that point in your life when you walked into that first Lifeonaire event?
Yeah, happy to. And this is a little surreal for me. I've been running a podcast for a couple of years, so usually I'm in your shoes asking the questions. So I'm a little bit out of my comfort zone today being interviewed. Happy to share. Been a serial entrepreneur for pretty much since college. I'm 33 years old now. I started my first business, was a painting company when I was in college. And prior to coming to the first Lifeonaire event that I attended, which was, you had an event in Wisconsin Dells almost 2 years ago to the month. It was April 2014. So we're just shy of the 2-year anniversary, and I'll do my best to be transparent, but business was not very good coming into Lifeonaire. I was struggling. Well, definitely financially was struggling, was still in those 7-8 years, I had a handful of victories in business as an entrepreneur, mostly failures. I had probably failed, if I sat down and counted, it was probably 20 to 25 different businesses that I had failed in, and was really just struggling to find my calling in this world. And I believe that God put seeds of entrepreneurship in my heart for a reason, but I was starting to really question, when am I going to have the breakthrough? And when does the fruits of the labor come? And was just very unclear about what I was doing going into Lifeonaire. And without getting into all the details, I'd failed a lot of different businesses, had a success. I guess I would consider one of my first major successes prior to Lifeonaire. I started my first information product business back in 2008. We started getting into Facebook marketing and social media marketing. We were one of the first companies teaching social media marketing back then, and I ended up building a multiple 6-figure revenue company. I drove that thing right into the ground. We ended up having a handful of partners, which was a handful too many. I highly recommend anybody listening to keep your business simple. Anytime you get more than 2 cooks in the kitchen, you get 3 chiefs. We ran into the classic scenario of too many chiefs, not enough Indians in the organization. And make a long story short, ended up failing that company. I'd moved out to California. This was a couple years prior to coming to Lifeonaire. Was asked to leave the company that I started. We just weren't in a good place financially, and found myself, we had gone from living in a nice home to basically, this was my homelessness part of my story. And I kind of joke about that because I think every great entrepreneur story has a moment of homelessness. At least I've heard that from a lot of them. So mine is not very sexy. I wasn't like on the street, but I did have to go move in to a friend's couch for about a week and didn't have any money. And it was a really humbling experience. I think that was part of God just knocking my ego down so he could communicate to me clearly. Sometimes we get in our own way of hearing the truth, but ended up wising up to my senses. I moved back to Chicago, which is where I live now. I was dating my then girlfriend for 3 or 4 years. We had made it for that year-long stint while I was out in California, and got wise, came back, proposed to her, ended up getting a job for a couple years, which is another part of the story. I don't know how in depth you want to go with this, but another humbling part of the story. And prior to Lifeonaire, I had an idea of what I wanted to do, and I was involved in the coaching space still, very average. I had a handful of clients. I was probably making like 30 grand a year. Just, every month it was a struggle to, what am I going to do this month to generate revenue? I don't know if anyone's listening can relate to that, but that was the space where I was in coming into Lifeonaire. And thankfully I had a good friend who's become my mastermind, my Lifeonaire mastermind partner. His name's Brandon Schwab. He's a good friend of mine I've known for years. He said, "Hey, have you heard about this thing called Lifeonaire?" And I'm like, "Life of what?" Is probably the reaction a lot of people have. And I said, "No, never heard of it. Never heard of this Steve Cook guy." Ironically though, Steve, one of my best friends' name is Steve Cook, and he was actually in our wedding. So I'm like, "Yeah, I know Steve Cook." He's like, "No, it's a different Steve Cook." So there's 2 awesome Steve Cooks in the world, probably a whole bunch more, but yeah, never heard of you guys. Came up to Wisconsin Dells in April 2014 and sat there and was just completely, it was like a moment of clarity. I've been to I've been a student of wealth building since I was 18. So for 15 years ish, studying everything I could get my hands on. I made a conscious decision at that age. I started reading like Michael Gerber stuff, the E-Myth, and Robert Kiyosaki stuff, and T. Harv Eker, Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, and all these different, in college, I was pretty disinterested in my collegiate studies, but I had my own little studies going on. I had started my library back then and studied all this stuff, but nothing really clicked until sitting down You were there, that event. I think Sean was sick that day or something, so he wasn't able to make it. And the way you laid out your 4 steps to prosperity just made a lot of sense. It was simple. It wasn't this big complicated thing. And to make a long story short, the vision that came out that day, I wasn't for sure exactly how I was going to accomplish it. And funny enough, you probably hear this a lot, Steve, but that vision has changed dramatically since then. We refresh it almost on a quarterly basis. We'll sit down and refresh the vision, and it always grows and expands and changes. But that little vision that day, I put one thing very particular. I was pulling that up before this interview just to kind of go back to the past. And I had put down on that vision to create one of my financial goals. I had a lot of family goals and spiritual goals. And I love that you teach the other parts of life first and the business part was last. But this is the quantum part. Everybody wants to know this, the successful part of the story. I'm not going to, share with you all the struggle without the success, but I put on that the financial part that I wanted to create. My goal was to create $4,500 per month in net passive income. That was my, I say small goal, because I was back then that was like a miracle. I think I was struggling to bring on $2,000-$3,000 a month worth of coaching clients, but it was a hustle. I had to do the work each month. So, almost $5,000 a month in net passive income would have been like just drinking water for the first time. And I didn't know how that was going to happen. I put that vision down, and fast forward now, 2 years later, we've more than doubled that goal. We one of the ideas that came out of that was to build a training program to teach Amazon sellers how to sell on Amazon FBA. And that was one of the things that I wanted to get involved in while I was at Lifeonaire. I had no idea how I was going to. I had no business prospects lined up for it. I just knew I wanted to get in the Amazon space. I knew that was a growing market. I knew I wanted to teach people. I love teaching. I love sharing. Love interviewing. Doing what you're doing is one of my gifts, one of my favorite things to do. And because of that vision, fast forward to today, we've more than doubled that for me and my partner. We've got a growing community. We've built a growing community. We've got just shy of 700 members in our continuity program now. And we just had our first live event down in Memphis, Tennessee. Actually, last week, we were supposed to do this interview then, and I had a conflict. So we had 115 people fly in from all across the country, Canada, Hawaii. They flew in for our event. And I told them from stage, I shared the same story with them from stage that day and said, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for a good friend of mine, Brandon Schwab, inviting me to this event called Lifeonaire, and starting with the vision. And I taught them those 4 stages of prosperity, and a 5th stage, if I don't know if we have time to get into that today, but that's the Cliff Notes, Steve. I know you've heard kind of bits and pieces of that, but my goals have stretched a lot since then. And I'm just extremely grateful that God put that message in your heart and had our paths cross. And you probably had no idea the fruits of your labor, but I really appreciate you being obedient to that and listening, because none of this would have happened had it been for that message.
Well, I did not know your whole story, and so I'm glad to hear a lot of the different things. And as a result of what you just shared, I have a few questions for you.
Yeah.
First and foremost, you had that entrepreneurial spirit, and you kept on pursuing different things, and you even in the midst of failing, you got back up and you kept on pursuing it. What was it, as you can look back now, what was it that you were hoping to achieve by finding success? What did you think success would do for you?
That's a loaded question, Steve. I can sense that because I ask those kind of questions too. Well, I can tell you this. I knew it wasn't the money. Money is just the fruit of the labor, if you will. For me, one of the core drivers is freedom. And I've always been a little rebellious towards traditional, authoritative infrastructures. Like in school, I was always a little rebellious. I was probably not the best son. My dad's a pastor and was a missionary when I was a kid. So I was always rebellious towards the faith. I had to kind of go on my own, and God had to humble me a couple different ways. In sports, I always wanted to kind of do things. So there's a level of freedom that I desired. And it's interesting, Steve, that for those first So freedom's what drove me. I knew that. And at a young age, I always had this vision and dream to be the dad. Sarah and I don't have kids yet. We've been married for 3 years, but I always wanted to be the dad that could be around, take the kids to school, be there for soccer practice, be there to play catch in the backyard in the afternoon, and not be the dad that was stuck, in a suit, for 40, 50, 60 hours a week away from my family. I saw too many people do that. And so that was the thing that I was running away from. What I was running towards was freedom. And interestingly enough, Steve, one thing I didn't share in the middle of that story, I got the privilege of learning about the freedoms in our country. And allegedly, if you don't pay your taxes, they have this thing called an IRS levy, where they will go into your accounts and they will take your money. So this happened. Part of I share this publicly just to hopefully bring some hope to someone who may be going through a similar situation. But when I was out in California, I was getting tax bills for one of those previous years. My CPA, I made the mistake of not hiring the best CPA. So this is another lesson of pay people well and surround yourself with people who are really talented in their area. I hired the cheapest CPA, not the cheapest. He was just a local guy. Great guy, still friends with him today, love him as a person, but made some mistakes and had some double reporting going on. Make a long story short, while I was out in California, the IRS was trying to get a hold of me, couldn't, because I was not being responsible with my mail. And I come back, and one day I woke up to get a coffee and my card's getting declined. It was like a $2 coffee purchase. And I'm like, what's going on? Check my accounts, negative in my savings account, negative in my checking account, and talk about a really sobering moment. This was kind of the breaking point for me. This is, I'd been in the game for 7-8 years, probably at this point. And, it's like I've been what I felt was working so hard, and I had gotten nowhere. And it was at that moment that I said, okay, what I'm doing is not working. This was one of many moments of surrender where I just let go, opened my hands up and said, Lord, what I'm doing isn't working. Clearly my pride has been getting in the way. So I'm letting go of my pride. I'm letting go of this business. I'll give you everything. You just tell me what to do, and I'll get in the passenger seat and I'll let you drive. And that was one of many moments of surrender. And I've noticed, Steve, I'll get back to answer your question about, what I was seeking, but I've noticed that the surrender at least for my life, almost always comes before the breakthrough. And I don't know if that's true if it's just something I've noticed, but in that moment I said, hey, what I'm doing's not working, and I'm going to go back and get a job. And that was the best decision I had made as an entrepreneur, which ironically, Robert Kiyosaki kind of talks down. I love his teachings. He was one of the first. I still recommend Rich Dad Poor Dad. It's one of the great, wealth building books of our generation. But he kind of talks bad about having a job. Like it's this, you're never going to get rich having a job. You're never going to get ahead. And while that may be true, what I found by going back to work, two things. Number one, I went back to learn. I took his advice. I said, if I'm going to go work, I'm going to find a job that I can learn something. We're going to learn a skill. And so I took a job in advertising, and my job was to manage a multi-million-dollar pay-per-click campaign for a group of like 400 local businesses all across the country. That was me and another gal's job, was to manage that budget. So I got to see advertising on a very high level, direct response advertising, internet marketing. I never would have had. I was running like, teeny little like, $500,000 campaigns with my money because I didn't have, a couple $1,000,000. That was the first thing I learned. I got that experience. But secondly, more importantly, as weird as this might sound, Steve, I found tremendous freedom in that job. And I never would have thought, the one thing I was looking for was freedom. And I was running away from gainful employment, trying to do things on my own, holding on to this idea of freedom. And what I found is when I let go of that freedom, when I surrendered it, God actually gave me the exact freedom I was looking for through the job. And I can't explain the confidence that gave me. Prior to that, I had, really nothing to do on a daily basis. I made my own schedule. So I was always kind of up in the air. So I can't tell you the joy and satisfaction it gave me to go to work on Monday morning and have a 10 a.m. meeting with my team. Some people kind of cringe at the whole corporate meeting thing, and it is a little bit redundant, but back then I was like, man, I am happy. I got someplace to go. My confidence went through the roof. I was able to provide, I saved up to get the ring to propose to Sarah. So it allowed me the finances. And on Friday afternoon, on payday, I had the freedom. I could go out and I could enjoy a Friday evening with Sarah, with friends, without the guilt of, I can't spend this money because I don't know when it's going to come in next. And so I think more than anything, that experience gave me it started, God was working on my mindset, that there's always more than enough. And I went from that was one of the biggest shifts, from a scarcity mindset of not knowing when the next client's going to come in or not knowing when the next bill, to, okay, things are going to be okay. My needs are being taken care of. And this was before I knew about your 4 stages. So I didn't even know that I was working and struggling in the needs portion of the 4 stages of prosperity. And then I could create my business out of inspiration rather than desperation. And to put a silver lining on that story, it took me I was in corporate for a year and a half. It took me about a year just to kind of get back on my feet. And then I started a new business out of inspiration. And it took me 8 months to replace my corporate salary working part-time. This was an internet marketing, affiliate marketing deal that I was involved in. So it took me 8 months to replace that income. But to answer your question, Steve, it was the freedom that I was seeking. And it's interesting how sometimes the way that we think things are achieved is not, the Lord says his ways are higher than our ways. And I could tell you story after story of how Gabe is a terrible entrepreneur and has bad ideas, and God usually has better ones. But it was the freedom. I was seeking freedom. And I think that, that was the main driver. I learned from studying some of Michael Gerber's work in the E-Myth, which is a great book if anyone hasn't read that. Learned that 9 out of 10 small businesses failed. So I basically, Steve, made the decision that if 9 out of 10 fail, then I don't have kids, so this isn't the best of strategy I would recommend for especially people with families. But my mindset was, if 90% fail, then I got to be willing to start 10 businesses just to see what works. And again, I do not recommend that strategy, especially if you have kids. It's very risky. The result of that decision wasn't 10 businesses failed. It was more like 20 or 25. But I guess we all got to learn our own way. So that's where I was at.
Well, some people would probably think that you and I have rehearsed this call because somehow or another, I knew that freedom was going to be your response to that question. And it would just sort of lead into a little bit of what I wanted to share. And, you had brought up about having all of those different books and the different libraries and all the studying and everything that you had done. And I did the same thing. In fact, your path and my path almost seem, very similar in some regards, and particularly at the age that we were doing things. And I finally came to discover, and this is when Lifeonaire started coming to fruition, that the one thing that I so desperately wanted in all of those pursuits of mine was freedom. And it took me a while to realize that what everybody else was teaching me, all of the books, all of the courses, all of the tapes and videos that I could watch, they were all asking me, not coming right out and say it, because every one of them told me that if I did what they told me to do, I would have freedom. But they were all asking me to give up my freedom in hopes that one day I would get it back.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, one day that just hit me. It was, if I want freedom, I need to pursue freedom, not give it up and then hope that one day I find it again.
Yeah.
And it is very subtle in the way that it is taught. Most people don't realize it, but to sit here and give up the next 20, 30, 40 years of my life so that one day I could experience freedom and live life on my terms was not attractive to me. I didn't want to wait until I was too old to do anything with it. Yeah. I wanted to experience life today. And I think that draw is what brings so many people in. And so with Lifeonaire, we decided to do things a little bit different, and that was to focus on life and focus on freedom and how do we experience that right now, today. You had brought up something else. You said, now you just did an event a week or two ago, and you shared the 4 stages, and you brought in a 5th stage. And I actually teach a 5th stage myself now. I have not made it a formal thing. And again, this is where you and I, we did not rehearse this, but I walk into my office, and as I was walking in this morning, I was thinking about redoing the 4 stages to financial prosperity as a free gift that we would give away. And that I was thinking, but it's got to be the 5 stages. And then I thought, no, I want to stick with the 4 stages. I'm going to continue to do what it's been, but I'm going to give the bonus 5th stage. And that 5th stage, in talking with a number of different people and myself, we come to realize that the 5th stage, and then I want to hear what you taught, the 5th stage is sort of giving back. It is now taking that sharing principle that we have and now giving back, whether it is teaching somebody, whether it is giving financially, whether it is giving of your time or your resources. We have found that as people go through these 4 stages to prosperity, that they end up in this place where they're now really giving back. Having said that, I don't know what you taught as your 5th stage at your event. Do you mind sharing with us what that was?
This is funny. Yeah, we did not rehearse this. And I was a little, I didn't want to step on your toes. I was a little apprehensive, but I'm an open book. So when I sat in your event, Steve, and you taught the 4 stages, which is getting clear on your vision, establishing your needs, creating excess cash or cash flow. I guess there's different ways that that's been taught. And then the 4th stage of investing in free and clear income producing assets. I sat there and I thought, okay, this makes perfect sense. Especially in my story, I had skipped the first 2 stages and was trying to go to skip to stage 3 and 4. And there's no skipping in this game. You pay the price in time, you pay it in knowledge, etc. But so the way you taught it made a lot of sense. But when I was sitting there, I thought, okay, this is great. This makes a lot of sense. I get to stage 4. I invest in free and clear income producing assets. And then this big question popped in my mind of, and then what? So let's say I go off and I create $100,000 a month in passive income. My family, my kids' kids, my generations are taken care of. Then what? And so the answer to that question is contribution, is what I decided the 5th stage was. You said giving back. It's the same thing, contributing to the lives of other people, whether it's financially, through your time. And the question I've developed through my coaching experience. I've gotten really good at asking questions, and one of the questions that has come up, a lot of people say, "Well, what do I have to give, and what could be my purpose?" And so I love asking the question of, well, what would you do if you had all the money in the world, you never got paid for this activity, and nobody ever knew about it? It's kind of one of the money questions. What would you do if you never got paid, no one ever knew about it? The answer to that question, I can't promise it'll be your purpose, but it'll point you towards your contribution. And so that's what I taught, Steve, was the 5th stage is contribution, which is where we should all be striving to get towards, of a place of service. This is what Jesus was living here in pure contribution. Somehow, I guess being the Son of God, he kind of transcended the 4 stages and being both God and man at the same time, but he lived a life in contribution. Now, I have a question for you, Steve, and I'm just going to ask you, because I got asked this question by a lot of the people I've taught this to, and that is, and I'm just curious because I don't know how to answer this question, but when is it appropriate to start to live in contribution? Should you wait until you've gone through the 4 stages, or is there another time when it's appropriate to start living in service and contribution?
Oh, I have, that's also something else. Another reason why I want to redo the 4 stages, because there are 2 things that I have really added into stage 2. First of all, stage 4, I think, needs to begin in stage 2. You don't wait to get there. You have to start the discipline of that at that time. But we've been starting to talk about the 10-10-10-70 rule. Okay. And most people sit there and they say 80-10-10 when they talk about this. We're calling it the 10-10-10-70, and we're putting it in the right order. The first 10% is giving back, or giving to God, your tithe, giving, whatever that may be. The next 10% is going to be paying yourself or investing into stage 4. The next 10% is investing in yourself, education. And then the 70% is the money that you would live on. But I believe that the contribution and the even stage 4 investing needs to be part of your stage 2 meeting your needs, however small or big it might be. The discipline of that needs to start right away. I tell people, there's many people who I coach who come to me and they say, Steve, I want to be able to give. I want to be able to do these things. And they talk about these grand plans of the things that they want to do. And I ask them this question, well, what are you doing about it now? And, sadly, most people aren't doing anything now. They're waiting until someday when they have a whole lot more before they're willing to give. And I'm just brutally honest with them. I say, listen, if you can't give out of the little bit that you have today, you're not going to be able to give when you have more. It's a discipline. Giving is a discipline. Contributing back is a discipline. So whether you're giving of your time, whether you're giving of your financial resources, you have to start that. And that should be part of your vision right away from stage 1. And so, putting in your vision, if you want to start giving, as we take people through that process, we ask them, well, what can you start doing today? And, you might have this dream of wanting to give millions of dollars or something to a cause. Well, it starts with giving $10 today. And if you can't give $10, it's going to be very difficult to give $1 million. Yeah. So you start those disciplines right now. And that's the thing that people need to understand. Both giving and saving are disciplines. And if you can't do it with a little, you won't be able to do it with much.
Okay, thanks. Sorry to put you on the spot, but thanks for affirming that. I had a feeling you were going to say something along those lines. Just based on what I've seen, but that's good.
Well, it is something that does come up. I talk to my students about it frequently. So we're continuing to even refine our teaching and to starting to include that now into our stage 2 and saying that these are things that need to be budgeted for in order to meet your needs. And I think that discipline needs to start early, not later. All right. So you one day had a friend, he says, hey, Gabe, I'm going up to this Lifeonaire event. You made the decision to go with him, and we know now that you sat through this event and it had a major impact with all the education and everything that you had throughout the years. There was something different that you had heard at the Lifeonaire event versus anything that you had heard in the past. Can you think of, one thing that really stood out that, sort of you got that aha moment when you were at the event and maybe share that with all of us?
Yeah, Steve, I don't mind being real. I'm a maven of sorts when it comes to personal development and wealth building information. So for the past 10 plus years, I'd like to think I've studied just about everything out there. I mean, I've just looked high and low for, all the answers. I was kind of getting a master's in it. Your event changed my life. It wasn't because of you. I'll give you mad props. You were the vehicle. Somehow God spoke through you. He reached down from heaven, bounced some message off of you, used you like a mirror. And the one thing that comes to mind when you ask that question is just simplicity. I joked with Brandon and with Sarah, and take this as a compliment, but I said, it's like the broccoli of personal development and wealth build. It's the stuff you need to hear. It's not the sexy, fluffy sizzle stuff that you get at, other companies. I'm not going to say any names. There's a bunch out there, but your event was simple. I joked with my wife and with Brandon. I'm like, Steve is like the most, I don't know what word I used. I'm like, he's like the calmest personal development teacher I've ever met in my life. Like, however, this has been downloaded into your mind. I've heard pieces of your story where you had the revelation for the Lifeonaire message. It's just simple. And I think, what you guys do better than anybody else in the world that I've seen, and I've studied high and low, is you take 3 days and you dedicate it to our vision. It's about us. It's not about you guys. You don't have some kind of secret agenda. There's no big thing that comes at the end, but you take the time to let the vision come to fruition. And, like my vision, it's been planted inside of me. You don't know what's in my heart, but you just created the space. And I think that's what you guys do better than anybody else. You create the space for that vision to start to grow. And so by the end of that 3 days, the first day you asked some questions like, who here has ever written a vision? And there's like, I was in a room of, there's probably, I don't know, 150 people that were at that event or something. And there was like 5 hands that went up, and like nobody had created a vision. And I just didn't know what I wanted. And I needed that space, and I still do. That's why my wife and I are going back. So we enrolled a good chunk of our group. I think we've got 20 members from our group that are coming to the next Lifeonaire event in Orlando, Florida. And I'm bringing my wife this time so she can spend the 3 days and kind of flush through what's in her heart so we can be equally yoked and on the same page. But I'm coming back to do the same thing. I mean, now that I've seen the power of what happens when you get clear on your vision, you put pen to paper. I've told this to all of our clients. There's something special, and I can't explain it. I don't know why it happens this way, but there's something special and transformational that happens when you take the ideas from your mind, you put it to paper, and you brain dump all that stuff out from each of the areas of life. And you walk us through family, you walk us through faith, you walk us through fun, you walk us through our relationships, and then we do the business vision last, which is unique, Steve. I mean, you know this already, but almost anybody else that's in this space teaches the business stuff first, because people think that money is going to solve all their problems, and it's just backwards. It's the reason why people struggle so much is they don't take the time to put create the actual life that you want to live first, create that contribution piece first, and then ask the question last of, what kind of business would it take to create this lifestyle? And I believe that the order that you teach that in is divinely inspired. I believe that the simplicity in which you teach the 4 stages and now the 5th stage of prosperity, it's just simple. And I forget where I read recently that God always communicates perfectly. And I read that, I think it was I'm reading Bob Proctor's You Were Born Rich, which is a great book. It's rocking my world right now. If anyone's ever read that, it's a limited edition, so they're hard to find. But he said that in there, God always communicates perfectly. And I thought, anytime I'm unclear, that's either the enemy causing confusion and angst in my life, or it's me, it's Gabe getting in the way of the perfect message. God's omnipresent. He's everywhere at all times, all knowing, and his will is perfect for my life. So anytime there's any confusion, that's not of him. And I think that's part of the brilliance in what you guys are doing, Steve, is you just lay it out, and it's simple, and it's no fluff. And there's probably not a sexier answer than that, but that's the truth. I think you guys just teach things real simply.
I have heard that before, so I don't take offense to it. Many people have told me, Steve, you're just the most laid back person I've ever seen at the front of the room. And you just break everything down into something that's so simple. It just makes sense, is what people tell me.
Yeah.
All right. So one of the things I do at the end of most of our events, and I'm really, really passionate about this, I urge people to get involved with our coaching because I see the results. There's no question about it. Within our coaching programs, the results are through the roof. And not everybody can get involved with coaching. And I just urge them, if you cannot get involved with coaching, you can still do this on your own. But I have to be honest, most people, they go to this event, they learn life-changing information over the course of 3 days, and then they go home right back into the old life that they were living, and nothing changes because they never made the time to actually begin to apply the things that they learned. One of the things that I think is really special about your story is that you did not get involved with our coaching program, yet you have seen some incredible changes in your life as a result of it. And as you have been talking here with me, you have even mentioned that, I go back every quarter or so and revisit my vision, and, we're continuously updating it. It's something that's growing. Can you share with our listeners what it is that you did that made this stick, because I think this is so important, and I want others who cannot, for whatever reason, get involved with our coaching programs to be able to have success with Lifeonaire. And so do you mind sharing what you did?
Yeah, happy to. Well, first off, I believe everybody can get involved in coaching. For whatever reason, I chose differently is unique, but, if it's money, you can create the money. Everything's just a breakthrough in mindset. But the answer to that question is simple, Steve. It's the number one way I have found to change a result. And you hit the nail on the head. When you leave an event, you've got the event high going on, and then you go, but that's because you're in a different situation and you're around different people that think differently. And where two or three are gathered, there's a third entity that's created. So new ideas come out when you're around people that are inspiring, that are going places, which is who you guys attracted to your event. So it's real easy to create the vision. The problem is when you go home, like you said, you go back to your old environment, you go sit at your old desk, and all those old things that you don't even know are influencing you, smells, certain triggers, they're going to trigger your old way of being. That's why in scripture, Jesus talks about, you can't put new wine in an old wineskin. There's probably way deeper meaning than just this example, but going back to your old office, it's like the old wineskin. There's your old ways of being. So the number one way I have found to change your thinking, which changes your results, is association. And if you want to get better results in life than you're getting now, you've got to find a group of people to associate with who are thinking at a higher level and have higher standards for you. And it's pretty simple. If you want to be a world-class plumber, go find a plumbers association, find the top 5 plumbers in that group and hang out with those people as much as possible. It's been said, all the great teachers have said this, you are a combination of the top 5 people you associate with. So what happened with my story, Steve, is pretty simple. After your Lifeonaire event, we were sitting in the hot tub up at the Wisconsin Dells, and the guy that invited me there, Brandon, he said, "Hey, we got to continue this, with or without. I think your titanium group was full, or there was something going on with your titanium group at the time that we couldn't get into it." And so we said, let's just get together. Let's just stay accountable. And so we scheduled on our phones on the first and in the beginning. We've been a little bit less diligent the past year, but in the beginning, the 1st and the 15th of each month, we scheduled accountability calls. And him and I would get on the phone. It was on our calendar. I think we had it scheduled for noon. It was a simple time. That way we always knew. 1st and the 15th, we would get on the calls and we would say, how are you doing on your vision? And we've done that for the past 2 years. So I associated, and Brandon's in real estate. I'm in the information marketing, publishing, e-commerce space. So we're in different industries, and we're going to be working together. He just closed on a huge, I won't tell his numbers, but he just closed on a big investment property, a multifamily deal that down in Florida that's going to bring him multiple 6 figures in net passive income each year. It's already an established business, and that was the fruition. That vision also came from Lifeonaire. So, Steve, it was us sitting in the hot tub saying we got to hold each other accountable. Let's keep getting together. And then he's the one that calls me out and says, "Have you updated your vision yet?" And it's I'm guilty. I'm not perfect, Steve. I say quarterly, sometimes we miss it. It's not perfect, but it gets done. And so I've got someone that holds me accountable, and I've got a friend and a partner who's playing life at a huge level. And that inspires me. He's seen the transformation that's happened in us. I've paid off like 25 grand worth of debt. My wife and I are about $800 from being totally credit card debt free, which is a miracle. I did that once prior to getting married. And then I got the blessing of doing it again. When I got married, I got to go through my debt snowball a second time. The retest. So it works. Yeah. Dave Ramsey's debt snowball works, but it's just association, Steve. You got to get around people. You got to join your titanium groups. You got to get coaching from someone. That's the shortcut. I probably could have sped my results up tenfold had I gone through coaching. And even now, I'm open and willing to be coached. I've got a lot of questions. I would love to spend time. I know your time's limited, so probably with one of your coaches on the investment side. I'm at a stage now, Steve. This is my new problem: is we have a surplus of cash, and I don't know how to invest it. So that's a good problem to have. But now I get to grow and learn, how to be a better stage 4 investor. And how to do that to where I can create vehicles that create passive income that I don't have to attend to. And so there's always room for growth, but it's just association, Steve. And you know this already, but you got to get around people that are playing life at a higher level, that think differently. And I promise you, you said this in our space, everybody else. And I study, Gary Vaynerchuk and Grant Cardone and all these people, they're hustlers. And yes, they make great money. And yes, they're leaders in the space, but they're working 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week. They're on planes, they're flying here, they're flying there. I don't know how much they see their kids or what their family life's like, but there's something to be said about putting your life vision first, going after the freedom you seek first, and having the business fit into your life rather than having you try and squeeze into, whatever business you're in. There's just brilliance in that wisdom, but you got to get around like-minded people. That's the simple answer.
I agree. And, I happen, the names that you just mentioned of some of the people who you study, I don't coach those people, but I do coach people who are very well known in the country. And I can tell you that when they first come to me, their stories are not good. They stand in front of a room and they tell people how great life is, how successful they are, and they do that to try to motivate others and to inspire others. But the real story is not what they present from the front of the room. And I love working with people like that because I don't have to teach them that having money isn't going to make you happy. They already know that. And then we can really just get in deep and focus on them restructuring their lives and their businesses in order to live the vision that they have. So that's a fun thing. All right. So Gabe, why don't you share with us a little bit, maybe, what does your life look like today? What are you doing today? What are your passions? And maybe share with people what the results are of having pursued your vision now for the last couple of years.
Yeah, well, we've paid off all of our credit card debt. That's a huge weight off our shoulder. I thought it was normal. I thought the credit card debt was like the family pet. I thought it was just normal to have it. I didn't realize you could live without it. Interestingly enough, the same discipline of doing our debt snowball, I can see how that applies to doing your positive snowball. So the same discipline of paying off debt, now I can apply those same resources towards investing and towards snowballing to the positive side. So that's a change. My passions, I work out. I'm able to go. I joined a CrossFit gym about 7-8 months ago, so I can work out at noon when nobody else goes. Whenever I feel like it. Sometimes I go at noon. Sometimes I go in the afternoons. But it's just whenever it fits into my schedule, I get to go. Lost about close to 20 pounds from doing that, from not being stuck at my desk all day. I play basketball whenever I feel like it. A lot of days in Chicago when it's warm, I'll go outside and start my day playing basketball when all the kids are in school. So I'll have the whole court to myself. That's a passion of mine. My wife and I bought a scooter instead of a second car. We live in Chicago and we needed another vehicle. So rather than drop the money in a car, I said, let's just get a scooter. So now I get to go pick her up from work. She's an attorney. She works downtown. So I'll hop on the scooter at like 4 or 5 in the afternoon, scoot downtown, pick her up. That's probably some of our favorite dates. We'll just go drive home. We'll take the long way home through Lincoln Park or some beautiful parts of Chicago, stop off, have dinner. And then I think my great passions, I love winter sports. So skiing, snowmobiling is like, I just love it. I could sled. I live in the wrong part of the country because for us to sled, we've got to drive all the way up past you guys to the UP. It's like a 7 or 8 hour drive from Chicago, but I would do it every weekend. I've been up. I only got to go once last year. I had a lot of stuff going on with the event, but I've got plans. I've got some of our coaches live out west. So I'll be going out west next winter to Washington. I've got a buddy that's got a couple sleds. I'll be up in Wisconsin. That's one of Brandon and I's new miniature goals is to get a cabin up in northern Wisconsin or somewhere close to the UP that we can get sleds, leave them up there and just buzz up on the weekends. That's a big part of it. Brandon just bought some quads when he was out hunting in Montana on his last hunting trip. So I will more than likely be joining him in the quad space. I just love anything that's got a motor that goes fast. I'm all about that. I see, just different people in your organization, but yeah, anything that goes fast. That's my days. I'm guilty of this, Steve. I've worked, I've worked real hard to build this community. My main passion, that's like the surface level stuff. My main passion is people. I just love people. I love seeing people grow. And I've taken on, I see the work that we're doing in the Amazon space, teaching eBay and Amazon sellers how to create full-time income, selling physical products on Amazon. There's a huge opportunity there. It's similar to real estate. You invest in products, you buy low, sell high. In the private label space, there's a residual component if you're importing from overseas and things like that. But I see what we're doing with our community. My purpose, my contribution is to grow our community. And we're a small little group right now. We're just shy of 700 members in our tiny little Facebook group. They pay a modest fee to be a part of our training, and I get to do all the webinars and the trainings. I pull in the experts and build the website and the systems to help them be better sellers. We've created product lead list as a new service we're working on to spoon feed them deals that they can invest in. They come to their email address on Monday through Friday. We do those in small groups. But I see the bigger vision of what we're doing is we're building a community. And I see a vision of, and this is the new vision that's coming to fruition, of 20,000, 50,000 plus members, 100,000 members all across the country. We're focusing on the US first, just for obvious reasons. But I see a vision of communities, of people that get together in person, that come into the light and support each other and can grow together. And I see this growing above and beyond Amazon. Both me and my partner, Zach Young, I should give him just incredible props. The reason all this started, Steve, and I should probably tell this piece before we wrap up the interview. I put on that vision that I wanted to create the passive income. I wanted to get in the Amazon space. I didn't know how. And at that time, I was running a podcast that I have since paused. It's still live on iTunes. It's called Rich and Awake. And it was a combination of personal development, faith, and finances. And I would interview different people. And I had interviewed Zach. I'd asked him, I heard the results that he was getting on Amazon. He had sold something like it was right around $750,000 in sales the previous year, which netted him a net profit of around $225,000 in net profit. And Zach's got 6 kids. His 7th's on his way. The guy works. He's like an anomaly. He literally works 4 to 5 hours a day. He is Lifeonaire. He just doesn't even know it, and he hasn't been through it. He was first exposed to you guys through me and teaching at the event and things. But I ended up interviewing him and then following up saying, hey, why don't we form a partnership? And I'll do all the work. I'll help you grow the community. I'll do the website stuff. I'll do the merchant account stuff. I'll do the CRM stuff. You just do the interview with me and I'll publish some videos and I'll help grow your little group. He had, at the time, I think his group had like 80 members in it. And he was just running this little thing through PayPal. I say little thing. I mean, Zach's blessed. But anyways, all this came, it was on the vision. God put you in my path. He put Zach in my path. And now we've become great friends, great partners. We've got this growing community that I feel like, I told him yesterday, I'm like, I feel like we've built this, it's like a freight train. I feel like we couldn't stop this thing if we wanted to. Now it's just growing and expanding, and people had rave reviews at our event last weekend. God's just got his hand all over this thing. But I told Sarah's my wife. It's just, it's night and day how fast things have changed. I say fast in a relative period of time, like 2 years. And so now my vision's more about, how do we grow this community? How do we bless more people? How do we, there's this gap in our generation. I see, my dad's a pastor. My generation is not in church right now. They're not getting the word of God. They're outside of the quote unquote church walls. They're in the world. So how do we reach people that have previously been unreached? Because my story and all this breakthroughs and success we've had, I give all credit to God and the forgiveness that we get through Jesus. That's I'm just I've made a lot of mistakes, and I just have been smart enough to listen a couple of times, and God somehow has used our story to be a blessing. And so now the vision next year is more snowmobiling, more fun stuff. Sarah and I are traveling with some friends. We got a great deal on a trip. We're going to be in Hawaii next month to celebrate paying off the debt. We're going to be in Orlando with you guys in April. It's like left and right. God's just bringing this stuff up and we get to do it. So it's fun, man. But I feel like we're just getting started, Steve. I feel like this is I'm still like I'm a student of the work that you guys are doing, and excited for the next chapter.
I always tell people that vision is a powerful thing, and once you start to put those visions into writing, it's just amazing at how that kind of stuff starts to come together. I really appreciate your story that you have shared with us today. And I'm very proud of the things that you have done. And, as I'm sitting here listening to you, it seems to just keep coming back to the same things for people who are just doing incredible things. And you had mentioned that, it's really about people, and you love people, and you want to help people. And that is the thing that I hope most comes out of Lifeonaire, because ultimately for me, when I sat here and I turned the purpose of my business around toward helping people and reaching people, that's when my business exploded. And when I did it for the money, which was, going back many years ago, I struggled every corner I turned. It was a struggle to achieve that next monetary goal or to even pay the bills this next month. But once I came up with a different vision, and it was something bigger than me, I was experiencing all the things that you've just been sharing. It just seems like everything just starts to fall into place. And so I'm really proud of you, really proud of all the things that you're doing. And I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes, because I think, like you said, you're just getting started, and you're at a point now where many people would think that they've arrived. And I think, the story is just beginning for you. So Gabe, I thank you for being with us. Any final words for those who are with us on the line?
Yeah, just thank you, Steve. I appreciate you and your leadership in this space. I know you kind of deflect that praise a lot of times, but I appreciate your willingness to be obedient to the Spirit when He led you to this, and for standing in front of the room and giving that message 2 years ago. I mean, it really has changed my life, and I don't say that lightly. So thank you for the work you guys are doing. And I'll echo what you just said. This is the last little nugget I'll leave you guys with. One of the things I used to ask all the interviewers, people that I would interview on the podcast past couple of years, what's the difference between an entrepreneur who's a six-figure or multiple six-figure entrepreneur who crosses over to the seven-figure mark? And I asked this to a guy who coaches very high-level individuals. I won't say his name and I won't say his clients. His coaching fee was $50,000 for the year. I don't know what it is now. So needless to say, I mean, people that can afford to hire him are fairly affluent. And without blinking an eye, he said, Gabe, the difference between a six-figure entrepreneur and a seven-figure entrepreneur is a six-figure entrepreneur's focus. It's very ego-driven. It's about recognition. How can I be more recognized? How can I'm great at my sales job, or a great real estate investor, or whatever. The seven-figure entrepreneurs that make that gap, he said, they focus on other people, and they tap into another layer of energy where it's about contribution and how do I serve more people? How do I contribute? How do I get, and they have this core belief that what they have can bless people, and they become obsessed with helping other people. Just what you just said, Steve, is it's like something that's greater than them. They're called to a greater purpose on this planet. And when they focus on the other people, the money that they were seeking just seems to come effortlessly. So I leave that with you guys. Listen to what Steve's talking about. He knows what he's talking about. Get to a Lifeonaire event if you haven't been yet. I don't know when this podcast will air. Steve only does a handful of these events per year. They're transformational. Get in his titanium group. Get in his coaching program. Just get as close to Steve as you can. And I say that because I'm doing the same thing. I've been following up with Steve for the past couple of years, trying to stay on his radar. So I'm saying that because I'm doing the same thing. But get close to Steve and what he's doing, guys. These guys are the real deal. And Steve, I'm just grateful to have the opportunity to share with those listening, and just appreciate you.
Well, Gabe, thank you. All right, everybody, we're going to be wrapping this one up. Thank you for joining us. We hope to see you join us again in the future on one of our calls. Have a great day, everyone.
There you have it. There's the episode with Steve and Gabe. I hope you really enjoyed it. They talked on a lot of things. One in particular, Peter, that I wanted to really kind of just really quickly unpack is this concept of this fifth stage of giving and contribution. And, I think this as well. And I see this with everybody I've coached across the board, that eventually there's only so much success that you can actually experience for yourself until it becomes a little bit more meaningless. And one more deal or another 100,000 in the bank, I mean, it may sound ridiculous to you depending on where you are in your life right now, but at the end of the day, I think it really is all about giving contribution to people other than yourselves, to purposes larger than yourselves, things you're passionate about or have a heart for. And that's where true fulfillment is found.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, what we talked about, and I've talked about the 6 human needs and everything, right? That's where the true fulfillment is found.
Yeah.
The growth and contribution, those last 2 big needs. So I think that's a great idea. When you start looking from the other perspective of contributing to others, being over there with them, and your vision is surrounded around that, all of a sudden, man, you're living life like nobody's business. You know what I mean? It's pretty awesome.
Yep. But one other thing, and I want to keep this brief, that I found very important is they talked about, if you want to be better, be around people that are better, right? Be around the right kinds of people, making sure you're surrounded with people that are on the right track. I'd say, man, you've heard me say this 1,000 times. Like, I'm not too ashamed to admit that all of my worldly success in terms of a cause or influence is due to other people. It's not me. It's not that I'm so smart. There's anything special about me. It's just being around the right people, quite frankly. And so I think that's huge.
Yeah, you're welcome, Vojo. So you're welcome. You surround yourself with me. You're welcome again. I'm still waiting for the check, but hey, So, but listen, I think that's a totally legit kind of a thing. And I totally agree with that, because think about it, we've all heard this saying of you become the people you surround yourself with.
Right.
The top 5 people that you surround yourself with in life, this is who you're going to become. Yeah. So really getting clear on that. What are the people that I surround myself? What are the shows that I listen to? If you're watching Honey Boo Boo all day long kind of thing, right? That has influence on you. That kind of permeates in some shape or form. So watch what you bring into your life to really dissect and figure out where you're going to get to. How you're going to go forward.
Yep. So lots more to unpack in the episode we don't have time for right now. Hope you enjoyed it. As always, we'd love to continue this conversation with you over in the Lifeonaire app. So go ahead and download that to your mobile device, or check out the desktop version. Go to lifeonaire.com to learn more. And it has been our pleasure, honor, and privilege to serve you. We'll see you in the next episode, everyone. Take care.